It was a classic tale of two halves on Wednesday night for the Clippers in Houston, coming off a game against the Milwaukee Bucks where they blew a big lead. The Clippers came back from a 20-point deficit in Houston to get a win. Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
Are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA and in my 19th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA basketball and NBA basketball content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And here's my question for all of you today. What is it about the Clippers that you think makes them just be so lethargic one half and then in the next just turn it on? What do you think about that kind of stuff, that flip the switch kind of strategy? Are you nervous about that? Why do they do that? Is it a result of age? Is it a result of laziness, lack of focus? You let me know. Or is it not a thing at all and I'm just overreacting? But we've had plenty of games like this season where we've had these tale of two halves and we look like a completely different team because we're not really taking things serious. So we're going to be talking about that. Also, Paul George, I think, is a huge reason for both of those things. When the Clippers are great, when the Clippers aren't great, he's usually a main culprit. And then Ivica Zubac, some weird things going on with his minutes and his rotations in this game. So going to be getting into all that. And this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. All you got to do is download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Whew. Okay, Clipper Nation. Played the Milwaukee Bucks the other night after a huge win against the Timberwolves. No Giannis, no Chris Middleton. And we're like, all right, we got to get this done. It ended up being, or looked like it was going to be, the hardest back-to-back of the entire season with Milwaukee and Minnesota on the road. But without Giannis and Middleton, it was like there's the opportunity to get both. And we blew a lead, a big one. And then in this game against Houston, got to bounce back, right? The Rockets, much improved team, still not a very good team, at least relative to us. And it was a complete tale of two halves, a complete disregard for the game, it seemed like in the first. I mean, our defense was very lethargic. Offense, the ball was sticking, a lot of ball pounding, a lot of ISO. Our transition defense wasn't good. We just weren't getting back. Paul George was taking really bad shots and having really bad misses. And when I say really bad shots, I mean, when he has a smaller defender on him and he's not going close enough to the basket to draw a second defender and he's just launching things and they were just bad misses. James Harden, though, started out pretty well with 8 points in 9 minutes in the first quarter. And Şengün was in drop coverage. So that he's a pretty undersized center. Even though he's grown a little bit, James Harden can still get some pretty good looks on that. As far as matchups, they had Fred VanVleet guarding James Harden, Dylan Brooks on Paul George, Jabari Smith Jr. on Kawhi, Alperen Şengün on Zoo, and then Jalen Green on Terrence. And then for us, we had Terrence on Fred VanVleet, Paul George on Jaylen Brown, Zubac on Şengün, Kawhi on Jabari, and Harden on Brooks. And obviously both sides switching 1 through 4. Now, the Clippers were down 20 points at one point of the first half. 20 points. I was like, here we go again. This team is not trying. They're not being serious. 44-57 was the score at halftime. They closed the run well on an 11-2 run. But, man, that first half, Cam Whitmore was like beating us down the open court, knocking down threes, had this crazy windmill dunk on a fast break. We were 8 for 20 from the field after one. And I think it partially just comes down to they made their shots early. We didn't. But the process, I don't think, was great. in the first half. Just as I said, the ball sticking. And I got to give a shout out to Don McClain on our local broadcast at halftime. He was so confident, and he was spot on with everything he was saying per usual. But by the way, I always say hi to Don McClain. He never even says hi back. He just acknowledges like with like a little hand signal, and that's it. Never says a word. But he was saying that the way the Clippers ended that first half showed him they were going to win the game. And he said it with confidence. And usually he does not make predictions like that with that kind of confidence at halftime. But elite basketball mind. Didn't take a rocket scientist, obviously, but that was a good call because we're still down by 13 points, and you never know with this Clippers team. We've been very great this season, one of the best teams in the league, 40-21 after this one, 19-13 away. But we've had some shaky moments lately. There's no doubt about it, as soon as the last game, or as recently as the last game. But the Rockets, as I said, just started out making their shots first, moving the ball with more zip, getting down the floor. Remember, they're a very young team, and we tend to struggle with that at times. So it was rough, and the Clippers just did not come out with the right intensity and effort, defensively especially. Now, Daniel Tice came in for Zubac kind of early. I'm going to talk more about Zoo and his weird minutes in this one and how he looked. But Daniel Tice and Mason Plumlee in the second half gave us really good minutes. And the major change was Paul George stepping it up. In the first half, he was like, I think he started 1 for 6. And as I said, he was taking bad shots, just messing around, settling majorly. And then he starts being way more aggressive, looking to get downhill. Now he's got defenders on his heels. He's snatching back and creating a ton of separation. There was one time he touched the ball in the fourth quarter. I think it was like against Jabari Smith, I believe, but I could be wrong. Gets it on the right wing. Quick move and exploded. I mean, I hadn't seen him move with that kind of burst in a couple of weeks. So that tells me that a lot of it is just him. Like the excuses. We got to stop with the excuses. I understand he's been banged up this season. He has that knee injury in the groin. But when you go from playing so badly in one half to all of a sudden in the second half, after a full half of NBA basketball, you're going to the basket with conviction, getting really low on your handle. I've seen it in his body language. We've had him for 5 years now. We know when PG's on his bully-ish and when he's on nonsense stuff. And this game was a perfect example. So when he started getting going, it changed a lot. And then Kawhi, I thought he did a great job of getting into the paint, finding open guys. He had 2 really nice passes in the third quarter and made great plays throughout the game in terms of playmaking. And then in the fourth quarter, he was big time as well. Absolutely big time, especially that and one. And I've been pretty critical of Kawhi lately closing games for us. Really, I've been critical of Kawhi closing games for us since the bubble. But in this one, he was big time. And let's be honest, this season has been better than the others. Besides 2020, that's why I mentioned since the bubble. Because in 2020, he actually was closing a lot of games for us. But it felt like in 2021, especially that stretch where Paul George was out, felt like he would get gassed at the end of games. Of course, we do have the 20... And against Utah, those first 2 games we lost, he and Paul George came up short with their shot making in isolation. But Kawhi obviously was super clutch in games 6 and 7 against Dallas. Then a year off. And then last year we had some rough games closing. So this year we've had the good and the bad with Kawhi and his closing. And I mentioned Kawhi because he's our number one guy. He is the guy we're putting all the eggs into in terms of taking us to the promised land because, as good as James Harden and Paul George are, this team wouldn't be taken seriously as a championship contender without Kawhi Leonard. He's what makes this go. And in the fourth quarter, he had 10 points on 4 for 4 shooting. So after a pretty miserable fourth quarter, he was 0 for 4 against Milwaukee, and he didn't even close that great against Minnesota and the Lakers. How about 10 points against Houston? I mean, it is Houston, but I don't care. Close the game out. It's NBA basketball. And Kawhi Leonard, that and one at the end on that jumper, that got me so hyped. So let's go, Kawhi. Hopefully this starts a stretch heading into the playoffs where he's shutting teams down, kind of like he was doing a little earlier in the season. But I think part of that is Paul George and James Harden just need to be a little more consistent. Mainly Paul George. James Harden, he played the whole fourth. Norman Powell also played the whole fourth. And Mason Plumlee damn near played the whole fourth, 11 minutes and 4 seconds. James had 11. How about this? Kawhi had 10 points in the fourth, Paul George had 9 points in the fourth, and James Harden had 11. So they had 30 points between the three of them in the fourth quarter. And that's the type of stuff you need to win championships. Your stars playing big when it matters most. And that's a great example. So I'm happy to see that. James Harden had 11 points in the fourth, 7 of them coming from the foul line, 0 for 2 from 3 and 2 for 5 from the field. That's, remember, just in the fourth quarter. And then Norman Powell had 6 points on 2 for 3 shooting with some big shots in that fourth quarter. One of them was a 3. Mason Plumlee had 4 points and 5 rebounds in the fourth quarter, but I actually got to give Mason Plumlee credit for his second half, and I'm going to talk about it more in the third segment where I talk about Zoo and the centers. But Mason Plumlee only played the second half, and he had 8 points and 11 rebounds and 3 blocks on 4 for 5 shooting. Like, probably his best half of the entire season. That was very impressive. And credit to Ty Lue for going to it. It came out of nowhere. But it's the stars for me, that made the difference. And then how about Terrence Mann in this game? He didn't even play in the fourth quarter like that. Let's see how many minutes he got in the fourth. 56 seconds. I don't understand. What we need. I don't know about going away from Terrence so much in fourth quarters. He's a clutch guy. But in this game, Terrence played 27 minutes. He was 5 for 5, 3 for 3 from 3, 15 points, 2 rebounds. And he was +7. I don't get it. He was 5 for 5 and you didn't play him at all in the fourth. But we won, so I'm not going to complain. But Clippers win this one 122-116. Kawhi Leonard for me is the player of the game with 28 points, 7 rebounds. 28 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. So there you go. The playmaking I was talking about showed up in the stat sheet. 2 steals, no turnovers. How about that? On 11 for 18 shooting. Extremely efficient. 1 for 4 from 3, so his 3 ball's been a little shaky lately, but I know it's going to come back. 5 for 5 from the line in 39 minutes. Coming up, though, going to be talking about the duality of Paul George. I got to tell you a little something about Game Time. Game Time is the best place to find great deals on tickets last minute. When you don't know you can go to the event and you find out maybe about an hour, or with Game Time, you can even get deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last minute deals. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Download the Game Time app. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Game Time has deals on tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right. Clippers winning this one 122-116 in Houston. James Harden returning to his adopted home of Houston. They showed a graphic. He's one of 3 Rockets to win MVP for them. Moses Malone and Hakeem. So, you're in company with them. That's fantastic. James Harden, by most accounts that I know, considered the second greatest Rocket of all time, behind the Dream, who was in attendance with the great Elvin Hayes. That was pretty cool to see. I love how much Hakeem is involved with the Rockets. One day I hope we get someone like that. I hope, it's a dream. It's a dream to think Kawhi, but I mean, even if we win a championship, everybody knows and everyone says, I hope it's not the case, but everyone's like, when Kawhi retires, we're never going to hear from him. But, if Paul George wins a championship with the Clippers, maybe he'll be, Mr. Clippers that always will come back and support. I don't know. That's a dream of mine, to have a player like that. But let's talk about Paul George. Oh, so James, sorry. Sorry, James. 21 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists for him, 1 steal, 1 block, 2 turnovers on 6 for 13 shooting. His 3-ball wasn't really falling in this one, 1 for 5, but he was 5 for 8 from 2 and 8 for 8 from the line in 39 minutes. So all 3 of our stars played 39 minutes in this game. Heavy, got the job done though, back in Los Angeles for some games this weekend that I will be attending. Now, very solid game from James Harden. Did a little bit of everything, and in that fourth quarter, he was making a lot of plays in pick and roll, finding our guys for good shots. By the way, I forgot to mention the Clippers went on a 7-0 run to start the third quarter, and that, made me think, all right, we're going to get this done. Terrence Mann and PG were a large reason. So this is where I'm going to talk about PG. It's very simple. In the playoffs, there's no room for this kind of stuff. Like, I'm being serious. He needs to be, and he's going to have an inevitable bad game or two. James Harden will as well. Kawhi, we'll see. He's a different breed in the playoffs. Outside of the bubble. We don't like to talk about that. But Paul George, he has no room for error in terms of not giving it his all, not being smart. Shots might not fall. If he's not making open threes, okay, it is what it is. But at least when he's getting to the line, he's being more aggressive, catching the ball closer to the basket. He has a higher percentage of making his shots, which then gets him in rhythm and gets him more confident for those threes. Because here's the thing about Paul George. Regardless of how old he is, he's like 33, right? Let's see. He's 33, I believe. Yeah. He still has this wavering confidence and aggression like he's a young player. And it's very frustrating because when you look at Paul George, let's say the way the Brandon Millers and the Kyan Anthonys look at him, as like their GOAT. You see that great stuff that he does when he looks like an absolute demigod, like in the second half of this game. Being aggressive, getting downhill, attacking dudes off the bounce, catching the ball close to the basket where he can just turn over the top without expending too much energy, not settling for too many threes, not turning the ball over ridiculously. So you saw both sides of it. We need him to be that side. We can't have him turning the ball over recklessly. We can't have him just settling for jumpers and shooting himself out of the game. So that's what we need. We need so much better in the playoffs. Let's read his stats from each half. First half, 1 for 6, 2 points and 2 turnovers. Second half, 19 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a huge offensive rebound late in the game, and he was 6 for 9 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3. Funny that the majority of his shots in the second half were threes, but they were solid looks, but there were times where he tried to get downhill, and I just think the aggression just changes everything. It's not about the threes all the time. It's just the aggression to try to get downhill. Things will open up. So, Paul George, the formula's there. We've seen it. He knows it. It's all about the confidence at the end of the day. So, Paul, we're going to need that side in the playoffs. Coming up, though, going to be talking about the center rotation and what was going on with Zoo. The fact that Mason Plumlee came in out of nowhere. Oh, Jesus. Lost my voice coaching yesterday. But going to be talking about that coming up. Jesus, man, I sounded like the Loch Ness Monster there for a sec. Yikes, as Ralph Lawler used to say. I got to tell you a little something about Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. The 2024 Nissan Rogue. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. All right. Clippers winning it 122-116 at the Toyota Center in Houston. So let's talk about the center rotation. Zoo did not look right in this game at all. Like, he had some decent possessions defending Şengün. But by the way, Şengün is such a great player. I really like him. 23 points, 19 rebounds, and 14 assists. He truly is the baby Jokic with that kind of stat line. 10 for 19 from the field, but he was 3 for 8 from the foul line. Jabari Smith Jr. had 19 points. He had a good game. 6 for 11 from the field, 4 for 6 from 3. But as far as the centers, right, for the Clippers, Zoo played 15 minutes, and he looked so lethargic. Was like getting blocked on dunks. I mean, that happens when he's healthy, but like, there was one time where he wasn't going up for rebounds the same way. He didn't look like Zoo, and he hasn't really looked like Zoo in a little bit. Should we be worried? Because pre-injury Zoo was playing great basketball, and his pick-and-roll chemistry with James Harden was really starting to come together. They pulled him out for the entire second half. And credit to Ty, he made the right call. But what was interesting was in the first half, they were already playing a slightly different rotation with Zoo. They took him out somewhat early in that first half and put in Daniel Tice. So that usually isn't the case to put in Ivica or take out Ivica Zubac's 6:35 left in the first quarter. But Tice came in, thought he did a pretty good job, especially in the third quarter. Nice roll to the basket and spin dunk on one possession. And just giving us solid stuff in that pick and roll. But Mason Plumlee, he started the second half, and it was a pleasant surprise the way he played. He was rolling really well, was a lot more active than Zoo, rebounding, making some decent passes. And he had 3 blocks. I mean, Mason Plumlee rarely gets blocks. But for him to have 3 blocks and 11 rebounds in just 20 minutes, that's big time. So shout out to Mason. He played 20 minutes in the game. Daniel Tice played 9 minutes. He had 6 points and 1 rebound on 3 for 4 shooting. But the important thing is the Clippers got the win. As far as Bones Highland and Amir, Bones Highland, I thought he did a decent job offensively getting to the basket. He had 6 points, and they were all around the basket, 3 for 6, 0 for 2 from 3. His defense was a little shaky in this game. He was kind of getting bullied a little bit. Oftentimes, he needed a defender to help, and it would lead to an open shot for Houston. But I know he can be sharper, as we've seen him throughout the season in his limited opportunities. Defensively, believe it or not, for those that don't watch the Clippers consistently. Amir Coffey, 2 points on 0 for 1 shooting. Pretty quiet, and he has been pretty quiet lately. Just 13 minutes of play, 0 for 1, and the only shot was a 3. And then Norman Powell, 12 points on 4 for 9 shooting and 3 for 5 from 3 in 29 minutes. Mr. Consistent, starting to round back into form. But yeah, very interesting call by Ty Lue to go with Mason. But should we be concerned about Zoo? Because, I don't know, we need the best version of Zubac to win a championship. And by the way, every single big man was playing drop coverage in this game, basically. Except towards the end, Plumlee started hedging on Fred VanVleet, who didn't walk into pull-ups. But for the most part, everybody was playing drop. PG hit a huge 3, by the way, to give us that first lead since 7-5 at 111-109. And also, they tried to hack up Plumlee, the Houston Rockets. Hack up Plumlee. And he missed. But in the fourth quarter, by the way, the Clippers, or actually in the second half, the Clippers outscored the Rockets 78-59. 78 points and a half. Our offense just turned up, but it starts with playing better defensively and then creating stuff in transition and off misses, because then, you get cross matches and stuff like that. Sometimes defense can be your best offense. That's one of my biggest philosophies when I coach. 36-29, Clippers won the third. 42-30 in the fourth. Both, as I said, both quarters in favor of us. 42-30, that's big time. After the terrible fourth quarter we had against Milwaukee. But we can't just flip the switch like that. I don't like it. We need to get back to playing great basketball for 4 quarters, which we were doing during the winning streak. I mean, the funny part is, it's crazy how much things can change, because when we were in the winning streak, I was like, it feels like it's going to take so much for us to lose. Like, we're that good. I never felt that way before. I was like, man, a lot of things got to go wrong, but we have so much talent. And now we just look like a very good team, but not a championship contender on recent form. But there's still plenty of time left in this season to round back into the best shape that we can be, and especially with Kawhi, Paul, and James Harden healthy, that's extremely important, more important than anything. Obviously, we want Russell Westbrook back as soon as possible. This is a type of game where we missed Russ big time, like with lack of energy in the first half. Like, that's what we need from him. We need to kick up the ass. But the most important thing is Kawhi Leonard being healthy. Number one. He's played 56 games out of 61. Paul George has also played 56 games out of 61. All they need is 9 more games, and they'll both be eligible for awards. And Kawhi Leonard should be on an All-NBA team. There's no doubt. James Harden and Paul George, probably not. But Kawhi Leonard should definitely be on an All-NBA team. Sad that Russell Westbrook, because he had that streak, he had missed no games this season. James Harden, though, technically he hasn't missed any games this season, but he missed the first 5 just because, the trade hadn't gone through yet. But he's played 56 games, so all 3 of our stars have played 56. You got to love that. Let's see if Terrence Mann's field goal percentage is updated. I like checking in on that. He's shooting 49% from the field now and 33 from 3. So we're almost getting to that 35%. Almost. But we'll take the win. Now the next game for the Clippers is back home on Saturday, I believe, against the Bulls. Yeah, it is. All right, I'll be in the building, 1 o'clock. Show up because a lot of Bulls fans like to come. If you can get a cheaper ticket, come to the game. The Bulls have played pretty good basketball this year relative to their expectations. No Zach LaVine and Kobe White's had this breakout season. So we got to be ready for them. That early start really scares me. But I'll tell you what. We beat them. We got 3 wins out of the last 4. Then we got the Bucks the next day. 2 matinee games in a row. Are you kidding me? But I bet you Giannis is going to play. And that's going to be my first time seeing the Milwaukee Bucks play ever. It's the only team I haven't seen play live in the NBA. I've seen every other team. I've seen the Supersonics. I've seen the Bobcats. I've seen the New Orleans Hornets. Never the Vancouver Grizzlies, though. I'm not old enough for that. But I've seen everyone except for the Bucks. So I'm super excited for these 2 games. It's a back-to-back at Staples Center. I will be there at both. So if you see me at the game, holler. Let's get it. Let's get a little winning streak going. Why not? Let me know what you think of the episode. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper, LA Sports content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Let me know in the comments section, what's with the tale of 2 halves thing? Why do we flip a switch? Why do we go so lethargic for stretches of games? Or mainly, first halves? Let me know. By the way, sorry I didn't release this episode in the morning. I had a really busy day on Wednesday. Really busy day. So I wanted to make sure I was well rested enough to give you something good because we don't play for a couple of days, so better to give you a quality pod instead of just releasing it as fast as I can. So apologies for that. We'll be better. Appreciate you all. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers.